And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Cosmic Encounter is one of the greatest games that was ever designed. Today I'm going to be talking about the newest version of Cosmic Encounter from Fantasy Flight Games. Came out at the end of 2008, and I'm going to be comparing it a little bit and telling you what the difference is between the last two versions. The two versions, there's been about 4 or 5 different versions of Cosmic Encounter, including the original Eon version, and there's even a Cosmic Encounter Online. But the last two versions, which I have both of them, is the Mayfair version, Cosmic Encounter, and the Avalon Hill version, also Cosmic Encounter, all the same thing. I liked both of those versions, but I didn't feel that either version was perfect. In fact, until I got the new Fantasy Flight version, I was basically using a combination of Mayfair, using the cards and the ideas from Mayfair, with the components from Avalon Hill. But there is a few differences in the new Cosmic Encounter, but it's probably the best and most streamlined version of the game so far. First of all, we can look at the components. There's no doubt that the original Mayfair ships that were just little cardboard tokens weren't that good. The idea of being able to take each of the different hexagons and put them together in a hexagonal shape, that wasn't a bad idea. But really, we're all very glad that this was changed. Functional would be the word for it. The Avalon Hill version was much nicer. Here we had nice plastic ships. The only problem with these plastic ships was that when you stuck them in this ship, you had to do it in a very specific way. And when you were trying to put them in different ways, sometimes it became a real pain in the neck. But still, the planets themselves looked nice. To the point where the new Fantasy Flight version almost looks like a step back. The planets aren't as cool looking as the Avalon Hill version, and the spaceships themselves are more of a flying saucer disc shape, which does make them very easy to stack. And the idea here is, with these planets, if I want to play a shorter game, I simply can take out one of the planets and only have 4 planets instead of 5. I don't mind this style. I actually like the Avalon Hill a bit better, but this was more difficult to stack, and these are much easier, and they're very nice, and I'm very pleased with the new version. It's certainly a whole lot better than the old Mayfair edition. The old Mayfair version, for when attacking, had the hyperspace cone, which was a pretty neat idea. Very easy. Avalon Hill tried to up the ante by having this plastic ship, which was really difficult to get those plastic ships in, but it looked neat. Fantasy Flight basically has gone back to the cone idea. Although, honestly, compare the cones here together, and you can easily see which one's much cooler, the Fantasy Flight one, and I like this idea a lot. A nice change here. Then there's a bit of a change with the warp. The warp is where dead ships go, and this original Mayfair one, which had a spot to put all the different hexes in, that wasn't a bad idea. The Avalon Hill version, which looked a little, I don't know, not chintzy, but almost like an advertisement rather than part of the game, still managed to fit all the things in. Really, a really neat idea. But I really like the new one here from Fantasy Flight Games. This one here has a numerical track around the outside, and you can take a disc from each player's color here, and this tells you how many bases each player has. So as the game progresses, you can quickly look at this track rather than sit around and count all the bases, or maybe let one person win because you didn't realize they had 4 bases instead of 3. This is a very simple idea, but something that added a lot to the game. In the Mayfair version, determining who you were going to attack depended on a destiny card draw. You would turn it over, it would tell you who to attack. Usually it was just a color, but occasionally it would say something odd, like the person who had the most tokens in the warp. The cards let you do a lot more, basically determining what to do, because after that we had Avalon Hill with the Destiny discs, in which you would simply turn over a disc, and that's what color you had to attack. The discs isn't a bad idea, although I much prefer a deck of cards, and I'm glad that's what Fantasy Flight went with. Again, you turn it over, and usually it's a color, like purple or green, but occasionally it's wild, or occasionally it's a special one, like whoever has the most cards in their hands. Having more cards allows you to insert more interesting, more dynamic things into the game, so I like using the cards for the Destiny draw. The basic cards for the game themselves Mayfairs were black and white and very boring, but they were very functional. It was very easy to see the numbers on them. It was easy to see the compromise cards and reinforcements, and the different cards were very clearly denoted. Cosmic Encounter tried to go for the cool factor, and the numbers were pretty easy to see, but the actual artifacts themselves, it was okay. It just went for that sci-fi feeling, and I didn't mind them at all. And again, I think Fantasy Flight has done the best version of this because, again, the numbers are very easy to see, but the different kinds of cards are different colors also. They went back with the word negotiate instead of compromise, but the negotiates are green, the attack cards are red, reinforcement cards are pink, artifact cards are blue. And artifact cards also show at the bottom of the card exactly when it's played. If you can play it any time, you play it during any of the phases. Reinforcement cards also show you that you can only play them during a very specific time. And the card artwork here is very functional, very clean, and very easy to know when to use it. Obviously, the most important part of the game is the aliens themselves. Mayfair had a ton of aliens. Once you had Cosmic Encounter, and then you added the more Cosmic Encounter. The problem was the person who drew the artwork for these was not very good, in my opinion. They weren't very well done, but they did have the neat ability where you could fold them up, and it usually didn't stand up very well, but you could fold the cards and easily see the powers. Some of the powers were fairly complex, so Avalon Hill tried to make it simpler. They only had 20 aliens in their set, and they went in these little stands where they stood up, although they were very easy to tip over. But they picked powers that were very easy to work with. What Fantasy Flight has done is they have 50 aliens. 50 is a great number. I mean, the inevitable expansion is going to come out, but these aliens are simply laid out in front of you. And they have good artwork. I really enjoy the artwork. And again, it tells you exactly when their powers played on the bottom and during what phase you can play it. The powers are very clear. They picked mostly easy powers. They picked mostly powers that are tried and true, although there are new powers involved in the game. One of the new powers I enjoy is for example here, the Masochist. He wins if all his ships are destroyed. So he actually has a different victory condition. This adds something to the game. It doesn't necessarily mean that this person's going to win, but they have a different thing they're going for. There's also the humans. The humans have a +4 added to all their attacks, which is a pretty neat idea, but more so than that, whenever they are zapped, they automatically win the round. And so there's about 13 or so new aliens included, but there's also the very popular ones, the amoeba, the virus, the antimatter, and many of the new ones are very much in-your-face aliens, and I'm really looking forward to see what they come out with next, but the 50 that they have here are good enough for now. One last thing that this game adds is technology cards. Each player gets 2 of these cards at the beginning of the game, and they decide which technology they're going to pursue. As the game progresses, they're going to be placing ships on top of the technology card. These ships are being pulled from being able to use as attack or defense during the game, and so you have to decide how many ships you're willing to put into technology as opposed to defending your planets. Each technology has a certain number on it. As you can see there at the bottom, there's an 8. So this one will require 8 out of your 20 ships. That's a pretty impressive thing, but if you complete your technology, you then can use it. This one destroys a planet completely. That's a very incredible thing, but you're taking a lot of your ships to do it. And so players are going to have to decide, should they pursue technology, or should they just play during the game and kind of ignore their technology and not spend too many ships on it? Technology is a good addition. We play with it almost every time. So my final thoughts here on the Fantasy Flight version are very positive. This is a reprint this year, and it's still probably one of the top 3 games that came out in 2008. They added nice functionality. There's a lot of the 50 aliens that they picked are a very good mix. It's an incredible game. You owe it to yourself to try it out if you haven't before. And if you are a Cosmic Encounter fan, I think this is the best edition.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.